Welcome everybody again, and thank you for tuning in. I have Dr. Kieran again here with me. We were going to be diving into the topic of anxiety right now. Dr. Kieran, for everyone who doesn't know him and didn't get to hear the last one, is a doctor that specializes in functional medicine, functional neurology, and applied kinesiology. He's had thousands of hours of actually working on patients and has worked with thousands of patients as well, and has a background and some training in Eastern I guess, what would you call it? Eastern medicine or, yeah, is that right? Is that the right term?
Yeah, just both sides. Yeah, east, west. Sounds confusing.
Perfect. So I guess first off, I wanted to start with a question of what is the root cause of anxiety? I know a lot of people, are experiencing that right now. And, I kind of wanted to attack kind of what you feel like is the root cause of anxiety right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we always want to break it into three major categories: the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, right? Or the mental and spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. Let's get the physical in there. And so, very much people always want to go to change your vibe, change your state, and all of that. And that's awesome. And I agree with that. And we're certainly going to talk about today. And we have to understand from physiological component that if people's blood sugar are doing this all day long, which is poor food and diet nutrition, then you're going to always have your blood sugar is going to drop, and then cortisol has to spike so you don't pass out, right? Your cortisol has to fire. When cortisol fires, your luteinizing hormone goes up in women, and this causes different hormonal changes. To keep it really simple right now, this affects estrogen, testosterone, and this affects mood. That's why if a woman's in hormone issues, they give her this hormone and she's like, wow, I feel better, hopefully most of the time. And so we got to stabilize this. And so this is blood sugar. And so one of the things is endocrine function. So I can't stress enough, work with somebody who will test this. And I'm not just talking about your standard Joe. I'm talking about somebody that really understands functional medicine and functional endocrinology. They'll do the right kind of testing to find out, is my cortisol off? Is my thyroid under functioning? Is my pituitary or my pancreas not working? These are important factors. So there's people that feel mild anxiety as they read their newspaper in the morning. And then there's other people like myself. I personally went through this where I literally couldn't get out of bed. My heart was beating out of control when I was 18 years of age. So I went through this. So there's different levels, and all of it can be healed. It can absolutely be healed because it's not actually a thing that's wrong, which is a great piece of news. So just know that if you are struggling with that, that's the first thing I want to get out of the bag here. So number two is like, what was your definition? I really liked it. You used it just a moment ago.
Yeah, and to me, anxiety is just kind of like we're projecting forward to an event or an experience that hasn't happened yet, right? And so what that is I think looking forward and not being more present in the present moment. And, we're trying to, I guess we're coming up with ideas or patterns that are past that we're thinking that this might happen again in the future. And if it's something we don't like, then it creates this anxiety that this may happen. It's something that I don't want. But to me, it's just like a projection of the future or an experience that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I like that. That's why I wanted to work with your definition there. And so, so there's the physical part, and there's that, and for me, another way I would put that would be around resistance, to resistance to what you don't want to feel, to resistance to what you do want to feel. So you do some things to not feel it, whether it's a good routine and you go and exercise, or it's a bad one and you end up on the streets doing drugs or something. I mean, there's extremes. And all of them exist. Trust me, after working tens of thousands of people, you see it all. So it's like, get the physical piece under control, work with somebody that can help you with that. And then really the biggest thing for me is I do a lot of feeling work. Some people would call it shadow work. But I mean, it's ultimately being clear and aware of what is true for you. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't all feel good all the time. And I was just discussing with Matt when we started that I've been feeling really a bit low with everything going on. The mass consciousness is very heavy right now. The media is very heavy. The story about money and all of these things in our lives is intense. Let's just be honest. And for two talking heads to be on a video and to act as otherwise would be not true. And so I want you to know that after helping and myself and a lot of people, that I go through it too. So what do I recycle back to? Is I always go back to getting into touch with feeling with what I have. what is Buspar and all the anxiolytics, the ones that, the anti-anxiety and the antidepressant medications do? They disconnect what you're feeling. That's what it is. So you're disconnecting you from yourself. And there are people, just as a side, that need medication when they need medication. But I'm talking as a general whole. Once we're in touch with what we feel, then we can begin to get really honest with it and be clear with it. And I have a whole thing we can do some video on or something about how to do this, because it's actually really powerful and really easy, because this is how we get back in touch with us as a true and centered human being, because we're going to have it, like where the emotions aren't the same every day. And it's just like that blood sugar, we're leveling it off, we're learning to really evaluate, when you're feeling down here, is this true? And it's like, no, it's not. You can bring it back up.
Yeah, no, I think like you said, facing that emotion and addressing it. And then two, I think once you address it, you can kind of start to separate from it. That this is just an emotional and a feeling that I'm experiencing at this time. Right. And I think that disconnect really helps me as far as like, I'm aware of it and I'm drawing to it, but then I'm realizing too, that I'm the one consciously viewing this and viewing this emotion. It is not who I am overall. And so, getting that separation and really diving into it, you've done some exercise with me too, where we're really filling into those emotions that are uncomfortable and kind of letting that energy pass and dissolve. And I think that helps a lot with anxiety as a whole too. So I'd like to next just kind of jump in for our listeners. What are some like top 3 techniques or practices people can use at home to kind of help combat the anxiety as well? Is there some things that you'd like to share under top 3 techniques?
Well, I would say that what I would say is, number one, people really need to be in connection with a sense of something bigger than themselves. Yeah. I think the greatest thing right now is people have lost, they work for Walmart. There's, what are we going to rally around and be so excited about working for Walmart? You really looking at like, what is it that really turns you on? For me, if I have a hard day or I see a lot of terrible things going on in the world, what makes me align back with my truth and has helps a lot of people is them remembering, like, I am choosing to serve the light, which I love. That's why I love the name of your company. Or I'm choosing to serve my community, or I'm choosing to serve what I know is I'm supposed to be here to bring. But most people don't even know what that is. Like, oh, I don't know what I would do. So that's number one, right?
To the source. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, really look. And so for me, it's about sharing knowledge and experience and helping clients. And that's the thing that balances me, because in amidst the storm, people always need love and they always need support and help. And so that's really helpful for me. Number 2, were you going to say something?
Well, I think that's beautiful, like you said, because that service to people is what really can switch things right around, right? When you go out and serving people and are going out with that attitude of like, how can I offer and help people? It immediately changes your state from an anxious and depressed state to a state where you're helping someone and kind of bringing a love back state and gratitude state. So I love what you said, but go ahead on number 2.
Yeah. And so then number 2 is what I like to call the emotional clearing technique. And I don't know that we'll have time to get into that today. That's a whole recorded series that I have. But to give you the simple thing is, it's, again, getting clear. You get quiet and you want to sit. And I often will wear something where I block out light or sound. You don't have to do this. This is very different from meditation. I think in some ways much more powerful, but it depends on what tool works for you in your life. And that's great. But we get quiet, we sit, and then we just feel. What am I feeling? Well, a lot of times it's like, you feel contracted. You're like, I feel like this, And so I would say, okay, if I was going to put all of that in a bag and put a zip tie around it and set it on the front porch, what would I call this, And you would call that, well, that's overwhelm, or that's, whatever. Because sometimes people are, I feel resentment. They can't even get there. There's just so much. And I actually felt that today, because I feel a lot in the collective. It's just something I've been working on lately in the past to sensitize. And sometimes I recognize the power of it. It's a real thing, clairsentience, and the ability to use the other senses. So then what do? I just feel the overwhelm, and then I allow it to be there. I communicate with it. I ask it questions. I may say, what are you trying to teach me? I may say, is this even mine? That gets into cellular and ancestral work, but keeping it really simple, you just breathe and you allow yourself to fully welcome it. You allow it in, that sadness, that fear, that trauma, because this is you. It's a part of you. You could say, it's not me. It isn't, but it also is a part of you. So don't be in denial and just try to get rid of these things that you don't want. Oh, I want to be in a good vibe. So, because then you're in rejection, and that's what the self-rejection is, the simplest definition I can give autoimmune disease. And we see that rampant in the world.
And it stores an energy in your body if you're not addressing.
Totally does. As stores as neuropeptides, Dr. Candace Pert, they've shown that. And then when you feel these emotions, so thanks for adding that, Matt. Sorry to interrupt. But once you feel that, and you feel those neuropeptides, once you can feel those, then they have the ability to release. And the amygdala, the emotional sensory part of the brain, we'll call it, just to make it really simple, then the amygdala can process these emotions. And the processing of it is about 90 seconds from what the research shows. So it goes from stored emotion and basically controlling your life to feeling it and moving it through your body, and then allowing you to actually shift out of it permanently. It's really that's powerful. So I have a whole program on that, and even what's called I coaching, where you learn how to coach yourself. So you can always, somebody can tell you this or that, or, you could hire a coach and they could tell you this or that. But honestly, if you're being really honest, you can't hide from yourself. You know yourself very well. And you're like, what's going on? And you take the stance of that coach. This is such a powerful thing. And it's very simple. It's just a simple shift of recognizing that you can have this conversation.
I like it. And if you have anything, like something that people can find that on or purchase it from you, we'll definitely try to provide some resources and the links and stuff below as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do that. And I think with me, some of the couple things that kind of going on that, number one, I was like taking deep breaths. I really feel like for me, I start with just noticing sounds, because I have a hard time sitting and meditating with the thoughts, especially when I'm in that anxious state. It's just hard to kind of settle down. So I try to just being very aware of just the sounds in there and kind of just listening when they start, when they kind of stop, and just being aware of them. At first, like my breath is more of like trying to catch up, like consciously taking the slow breath in and out. And by doing that, my goal is to get to a state to where I can physically watch my breath from start to finish without me actually having to breathe in or breathe out, and kind of just watching it go. And when I do that, when I stop, I feel like I'm at a really kind of calm state at that point. So like you said, right along with your meditation and connecting back to source, to me, that's my, I guess, aspect of that. And then, number two for me is moving my body. I feel like that changes my state pretty fast, and I'm trying to break a sweat or trying to get some functional movement in, to where, I'm moving that physical energy in my body and kind of, letting that nervousness get out. So I put some resources and some videos up just recently on that, and we're going to be putting some more through the tribe and fan page. So y'all can check them out there on those. And then number three for me is, taking some calm supplements and essential oils. And I know that's one big one for you too. You were over at my house the other day, and we were sitting there dumping essential oils and sniffing different ones. And like, it's crazy how immediately it can change your state. And so I try to carry those around, those little rollers and those little things like that, and kind of put them on throughout the day, especially when I'm kind of feeling that anxiousness. And it seems to help a lot as well. Do you have anything like that you really like, that you wouldn't want to share, like any kind of herbs or essential oils that you prefer during that?
Well, I mean, lavender. I really love lavender. I love Stress Away. It's not from the same company, but it's an amazing one. Those kinds of calming ones. I love Standing on the Earth. I most prefer meditating out in nature under a tree, if you can get out there, if you can go get into a quiet park right now, if they're not shut. That's important. This is important stuff. This earth is based on the Schumann resonance, and it's an alpha frequency that our body depends upon. The more separated you are from it, the more disconnected. But this conversation goes really deep, because that gets into serotonin and GABA and neurotransmitter production and all of that. So to keep it simple, I really think that if you use some oils that you really like, and the main thing is to look at what is. That's the whole thing.
Absolutely.
And like all these hacks and tactics and stuff is to really look at what is,
Exactly. The movement, the meditation, the herbs are just to kind of calm us down. So like you said, we can actually face what it is in front of us. Well, awesome. And another thing too, I obviously got to talk about CBD, something that I use a lot for calming. It's been shown in lots of different studies of, just the effect of how many receptor sites of endocannabinoid receptor sites we have in our nervous system. And that's why we tend to feel, and a lot of people tend to have feelings of, relaxing and things like that. So for me, CBD is a big one. We have some amazing products. Obviously, that's what we do. I try to keep it as full spectrum as possible to where we're including the most of the plant in. But another one that I obviously have to mention that I use on a daily basis that helps with that.
Absolutely. That's really good one. So
Glad to hear.
yeah,
that.
beautiful.
Well, is there anything, I guess, to kind of wrap this up? We talked about the root cause of the thing, and I guess, is there anything else that you want to say to the listeners or anything that might be helpful, or any last words here?
Well, I mean, the honest truth is just, again, reminding is feel what's there. I feel like, honestly, for those of you that are listening and feel really called to do something good in the world, the reality is that we are a biome part of this planet. And it's almost like everyone woke up the other day and took a bad LSD trip. And if you have 7 billion people in your biome, which is what we have in our GI tract, on a bad trip, and everyone's overwhelmed and talking about, information overload of all this, and YouTube is like the hottest ticket next to Amazon right now, and just of information overload, it's be okay with that. You're feeling this stuff. Don't sit there and drink a box of wine. Get really true about it.
Mm-hmm.
Get really in connection with you and allow yourself to move this stuff off, because it's actually, I believe, one of the greatest things that we can do as the biome. It's a way that allows us to really step into a sense of service and power, even if we're being separated by mandate of the state, that we can do something in and of ourselves. It's like the studies around the people that meditate and the world changes. So, let's remember that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for these tips. I appreciate it, Dr. Kieran. If you guys want to find more Dr. Kieran, he's at lifeempowered.com. He's got a great YouTube channel with a lot of amazing videos that you can check out. So if you need anything or want to find him, you can reach out to him and find him, and we'll put resources and stuff as well on the link. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Dr. Kieran, for being on here as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Bye.